Right, let's stay with Main Street now and talk about the Indian rupee, which is trading at an 11-week high, the highest level we've seen since September the 4th. In fact, it's a top performer among the Asian currencies. You can thank lower crude oil prices and higher FI inflows for all of that. And to discuss currency, joining us is Jamal Mecklai. Hi, Jamal. Good afternoon. Always a pleasure chatting with you. This is Nantara. So, rupee trading at an 11-week high is the worst performing Asian currency. Now, it's the best performing Asian currency. Is it just global factors at play because crude has started to sell off? Could it be as simplistic as that?
Well, I think you also have to look at the context. And certainly it is crude which has driven it higher, But the point is what drove it lower, right? Well, it was driven lower, because crude had crossed 80. There was a lot of nervousness in the market generally, and there was forecast that crude was going to go to 100. So when the rupee first crossed 70, which I think was in August or September, right? End of August. What happened? There was a lot of speculation. See, because what had happened if you go back before, RBI had protected 69 quite successfully 3 times. Right? So I think when it fell through 70, suddenly that's when everybody said, okay, the bottom is falling out. And there was a huge amount of speculative position taking, both in the NDF market, and I'm sure every bank in India must have gone long dollars, right? And then as things turned out, in full marks to RBI, who needs all the marks they can get today, that, when they did not raise interest rates, they did not respond to the terror in the market. And they just held their own. And by good fortune, oil prices turned. I think before oil prices turned also, the people who had taken positions started unwinding them, because you could measure that by you look at the NDF spread. The NDF spread had gone up to about 20 paisa for 1 month. It came down to 0. I can't remember exactly when. And now the rupee is sort of, I don't know, is it back to the pavilion? Is it going to continue strengthening? Will there be another wave of terror that will push it weaker? Nobody knows the answer to that, but this is the reality.
Oh, yes. I think if we all had the answers to that and a crystal ball, we'd all be billionaires and maybe owners of television networks. But, Jamal, jokes aside, what about that marathon 9-hour-long RBI board meet? Would you expect the outcome of that, a 175-word press release, to have any impact on Mint Street? Especially since, the governor and the finance minister will be deciding on the members for a committee on capital framework, on transferring the surplus to the public and the government.
See, I think basically, clearly, you can't have a battle like this and have no scars left over, right? It was a real public battle, 9-hour board meeting. I think the key issue that needs to be remembered is, I think it was mentioned by a lot of other people, that, Reserve Bank is not a company, that it should be run by a board. You need to have you have to really depend on the technical skills of the people at the RBI, right? And now, one of the points is that, this is not new. There have always been battles between the RBI and the finance ministry, but it's generally been settled amicably. Now, the important thing is to see whether things will, whether they'll get back into a working relationship. In fact, I'll tell you, I have some friends in Delhi who told me 6-8 months ago that RBI doesn't even talk to the finance ministry. It only talks to the PMO. Right. So, the bad blood has been there for a long time. And, if you really spread it a little bit, suddenly the current government believes that they should run, they know how to run everything and it should be run that way. So whether or not there will continue to be pressure on the RBI, I don't know. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised to see a resignation, one in particular, coming up down the road. Now, in terms of what sort of came out of the meeting, it looked like a reasonable compromise all around. Now, the point is on the reserves, whether they should be transferred, what is the reasonable amount of reserves, etc. It's really bought time, right? But as you pointed out, the members of the committee are going to be appointed by both sides. So in other words, you've kicked the can down the road. They're not friends. Let's put it that way. And they have clearly different views. The central bank is more, shall we say, a central bank, more correct. That no, our job is to do this. The government also understandably needs to see growth. And my only concern is that the government really, in many areas, seems to believe it knows everything. And it doesn't. So we have to see how it goes.
Jamal?
But so far, so good.
Jamal, you said that you wouldn't be surprised if there would be a resignation, one in particular. I thought that was done like after yesterday, since there was no resignation, there were no expectations on that, or did I read that incorrectly? And were you talking about the governor or the deputy governor that went public in a public lecture?
That's just my view. I may be dead wrong, right? I think another important thing to look at, which is very important, and this is, in terms of, okay, what is the impact of all this drama on the markets? I mean, the reality is investors are bringing money in. Right? There's $1.5 billion has come in November after multiple months of losses. Right? So that says that the global markets don't seem to feel too perturbed by this drama, which is, again, interesting. See, very often what happens is when you're very close to the action, I mean, this is true in personal life and in markets and everything, you think the world is going to fall apart. Right? Because you're too close to it. People are a little bit outside, they say, हाँ भाई ठीक है यार, कुछ नाटक चल रहा है. But the story still looks good. I mean, I think it's fantastic that so much money has come in.
In fact, when the tensions were at their peak, Jamal, people in North Block used to joke and say, see, tensions are so high with Reserve Bank and market things, there's going to be a resignation and money is flowing in. That's, of course, that was the big joke in New Delhi. I'm sure that was not the joke in Mumbai and on Mint Street. But having said that, thanks so much for joining us here and, as always, being as candid as you are.